And now, to introduce our third and final Game Changer West honoree, please welcome our Advisory Council member and Chief Future Officer at Salesforce, Peter Schwartz.
Thank you, Margaret. I must say, when Margaret contacted me and asked me to speak in behalf of this award, I was really honored. I was honored because the achievements of Tammy Ma will change the world forever, will change the future, and have opened up a new door to human possibilities. I started my career at Stanford Research Institute 50 years ago, and one of my first projects was attempting to understand long-term climate change. And we then saw the first signs of climate change, and we are today in a world of climate change. The Asia Society has taken action before to deal with this. My good friend Orville Schell over here organized a remarkable exhibit that traveled the world called Coal and Ice, that documented how the coal industry and how coal use around the world have transformed the world for the worse. That we are seeing, in fact, climate change nearly everywhere. But to put it particularly in an Asian context, and it was the message of Coal and Ice, was that the glaciers of the Himalayas are all beginning to disappear. And that is not merely the loss of something beautiful, it is the loss of the waters of Asia, because every river in Asia begins in the Himalayas, whether it's the Yangtze, or the Yalu, or the Irrawaddy, or the Brahmaputra, or the Ganges, or the Indus, and especially the Mekong. The Mekong goes through 6 countries and ends in the South China Sea, in the Mekong Delta, the richest rice-growing area of Asia. Asia depends upon the rivers of Asia to feed itself, to provide the water that the countries of Asia need, and they are beginning to disappear. And there is only one solution we know, and that is to find ways to produce new energy without fossil fuels. And it is a remarkable achievement, because the truth is that people have been working on what Tammy has now achieved for 50 years unsuccessful, actually more like 75 years. In fact, I'm here with a good friend, Dr. Sherry Forrester, whose father was a fusion physicist and never got there. Many people have worked on it. The joke in the industry always was that fusion is 50 years off, and it will always be 50 years off. Well, Dr. Ma changed that. She opened a new door. And I have to say, I'm an engineer. I'm also, like Dr. Ma, aerospace engineer. So I really appreciate great science and great engineering. And this was remarkable science and remarkable engineering. What she achieved was, for the first time in all of human history, we had a sustained fusion reaction on the Earth. There's only one other place in the solar system where we have a sustained fusion reaction, and that's in the sun. We brought a little bit of the sun to Earth, and it was Tammy who achieved that in a remarkable piece of both science and engineering. It's an amazing machine she and her team have built. If you ever see it, it's quite remarkable. In fact, the last Star Trek movie's engine room of the Enterprise was her facility at Livermore. It is one of the coolest machines on the planet. 192 laser beams come together on a tiny little capsule that she helped design that implodes and creates remarkable pressure to take that hydrogen and press it and fuse it into helium. So not only is she saving the Earth, she has done one of the greatest pieces of science, one of the greatest pieces of engineering, and has changed the future for all of us. I am delighted to bring to the stage Dr. Tammy Ma.
Good evening, and thank you so much for this amazing accolade and for this very kind introduction and video. It is such an honor to represent Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory and the entire team that made the ignition breakthrough possible. And when I say the team, I do mean thousands of people who have been working on the grand challenge of fusion for over 6 decades now. steadily and persistently advancing the scientific understanding and technologies step by step. In fact, the story of ignition is really a remarkable one. Just a few days after the laser was invented in 1960, a man named John Knuckles, who later became one of our lab directors, came up with the idea of using lasers to drive fusion. This was when all we had was a tiny beam of light. And fast forward to today, we're in our Bay Area backyard, just 50 miles east of here. We house the world's largest, most energetic laser, where each time we fire the laser, the power released is 1,000 times greater than the entire US electrical grid. But of course, your lights actually don't flicker at home when we take a shot. And that's because we're compressing huge amounts of energy in just a few nanoseconds. Enough energy density to where we can create here on Earth miniature stars. And what incredible audacity to think this big. What incredible innovation. This is really one of those achievements that is only made possible by standing on the shoulders of the giants who have come before us. Giants like John Knuckles and many, many more. I am so grateful for the path they paved, and it is something I know that most of you in this room understand well and can relate strongly to. As Asian Americans, most of us identify strongly with the immigrant story. If not ourselves, then our parents or our grandparents or not so distant relatives. They were the giants, the ones that took enormous risks and were willing to think boldly to allow us to be where we are today. And in fact, one of my giants is here, my mother, Kim. Thank you, Mom, for the very strong shoulders that I stand on to allow me to literally reach for the stars. And we owe it to those giants to continue pushing hard, to continue persevering. We have now achieved ignition for the very first time, generating more energy out than we put in. But there are still many challenges to tackle before we can harness that energy with a power plant. We still need better lasers, mass production of targets, new materials, reactor engineering. The list is long and the challenges are many. And we will need a lot more innovation, but this is what makes it so exciting. And how long? I get asked this question all the time. How long will it actually take before we have that clean, abundant fusion energy on the grid? To be honest, I don't know. Even with big amounts of investment, this is a new frontier. No one has done this before. We're definitely still at least a decade away, probably more likely 2 or 3. And that may seem like a long time, but let me give you just one amazing example of how fast innovation can happen. The Wright brothers demonstrated human flight for the first time in 1903. Just 54 years later, just a fraction of a lifetime, the Boeing 707 was launched, taking passengers on the very first commercial passenger flight. Just within 54 years. And get this, the wingspan of that Boeing 707 was longer than the entire distance the Wright brothers flew. So as you drive home tonight, I hope you take a moment to look at the stars above, and hopefully we can see them tonight. But those stars, they may look far away, but we're already creating our own down here on Earth, standing on the shoulders of giants to ignite a future of clean, plentiful energy, standing on the shoulders of giants to ignite a future of innovation. This is our Wright brothers moment. Thank you to all of you and to the Asia Society, Northern California, for this immense recognition. Let's fly.
Congratulations to Tammy Ma. Let's hear it again for her. That was so inspiring. I'd like to take a moment to thank our team who has been working very hard to put this event together. It's a small team of 6. On our programs team, Nina Udagawa and Christy Young-Smith. They've been up here on stage right and stage left. We have Angela Green, Mackenzie Jakovic, Jeremy Wegerer, Aaron Moroccan. We have 2 interns and an army of volunteers. So thank you very much for making all of this happen.